everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join me with this meeting with the Board of Directors on the Climate Reality Project. Just a bit of background about the reason we're convening here today. This is a pretty major project. We've all been working very hard to get this approved, and we're going to run it by everyone here and see if we can start putting this into effect. This project is being undertaken in an effort to minimize the negative impacts of climate change. We're all familiar with that, as well as to slow the progression of it. We all know that worsening natural disasters in 2015, it caused $1 billion in losses in the U.S. alone. And we're dealing with things such as poor air quality as a result of increased ground level ozone, which has caused major health hazards that we know have to be addressed. Climate change has had a major negative impact on the world as a whole, including societal, economic, civil, and ecological ramifications. And that trend will continue to rise if nothing is done. So we've outlined 3 objectives that we'd like to have accomplished within the next few years. Objective number 1 is to reduce carbon emissions. Doing so it'll reduce the carbon footprint on a global scale, which will hopefully positively impact the reduction of climate change and the effect it has on society. We're going to increase the use of renewable resources and then implement those renewable resources in nations worldwide. As I mentioned, this is a global effort. It's going to require a lot of time, a lot of planning to put into full effect, but we feel that doing so is going to have a very positive impact on a global scale. And objective 3 is to institute strict global regulations in order to monitor climate change to determine the success rate of those new regulations. That will allow us to look at the pattern that's post implementation of using renewable resources, and we're hoping to see a downward trend in the negative effects of climate change. But if not, monitoring will allow us to determine what has to be done in order to get things back on track as far as the projections are concerned. So by the end, the hope is that a reduction of carbon emissions will improve the quality of life for many species, animal and human alike. Hopefully death rates will lower, as well as major health hazards. The global average temperature will lower. Renewable resources will not only reduce carbon emissions, but will ensure Earth's sustainability for future generations. And global regulations will provide guidelines so that unity will prevail. The end result will be a more naturally sustainable Earth, as well as increased likelihood of the survival of all species affected and threatened by climate change and global warming. Okay, so there are 3 phases of work which will be implemented in the future. Phase 1 is to create a global treaty which will encompass the values and principles of climate reality's goals. That involves getting as many global leaders involved as possible. That will start on September 1st, 2020. Hopefully will wrap up October 1st, 2022. Phase 2 is to create and engineer products that will eliminate carbon emissions as much as possible. That includes vehicles, automobiles, and starting to try to implement and install different methods of getting energy to buildings, power grids, such as solar paneling and using wind power, wind turbines to generate electricity. Hopefully that will begin on January 1st, 2022, and end roughly 2 years later, January 1st, 2024. The Phase 3 are monitoring statistics that are impacted by climate change in order to determine the success of the regulations that were put in place, and then compare them to the projections that we have for the rate of success that we're hoping to find. That will begin on January 1st, 2024, and then will reoccur on an annual basis every year thereafter. The budget for Phase 1 is roughly $1 billion, Phase 2, $10 billion, and then Phase 3, $250 million on an annual basis. A few key stakeholders that we've got: our client is the Climate Reality Project. Our sponsor is the president of the Climate Reality Project, former Vice President Al Gore. Our project manager is Cindy Horn of the board of directors. The monitoring will take place through governmental branches, which will be instituted globally, which will be responsible for monitoring the progress that all of the proposed changes have made. And each year, data will be collected at specific points around the world and will be compiled for annual review. Such data will be evaluated as compared to the projected success rate of such changes, and upon the evaluation, we will look and see if changes will have to be made in order to better align with the projections. As new technology arises, changes may need to be made to accommodate.